So this isn't like a known fact or anything, but I'm a big fan of spooky internet stuff. Well, in theory. Since I was around 13 years old, I've kind of liked psyching myself out by watching quote-unquote scary YouTube videos. Looking back, these videos weren't really scary at all, and everything spooky about them came from their titles and thumbnails. Like, it would be something like, the most disturbing lost media they don't want you to know about, trigger warning, very, very scary, NSFW, and the thumbnail will legitimately be pretty unnerving, especially at night, so I'll be all like, oh yeah, time to watch some disturbing stuff and make my chronic insomnia even worse than it already is. But then I'll watch it, and I'll just be like, in 1979, there was a children's cartoon called Alan the Lamp, and it ran for one season and then got cancelled. So now every episode has been lost to time. Like, ooh, spooky. I gotta hand it to those thumbnails though, because I've seen some really great ones that at certain points can't be genuinely unnerving. They're doing all the heavy lifting though, because the videos themselves just never live up to the expectations set by the titles. Now, when I was 13, this didn't matter to me, and I would eat this stuff up. But now that I'm a legal adult who still has an odd fixation of scaring myself, these just don't do it for me anymore, you know? They just aren't my cup of tea, so to speak. And the main thing that's been dominating this particular side of YouTube has been analog horror. For the last few years, analog horror has been at its peak of popularity online, and has gained a lot of success. Now, analog horror isn't at all anything new. I mean, it's been a thing since like the late 2000s, but in 2020 during the pandemic, it suddenly got a burst of popularity. And I think that's because everyone was going a little bit crazy during this time, so that type of out there content was just a lot more well liked than it was before. Stuff like the Local 58 and the Mandela Catalog are what really shed light on this previously very obscure subgenre, and ever since then it's become more and more mainstream. And that was around the same time, you know, stuff like liminal spaces were getting really popular. My fixation with scaring myself was at full force during the time analog horror was gaining traction, so you better believe I was recommended tons of different channels and video essays about those channels. And this was back when I was still scared very easily, so I gotta admit, this stuff did initially work on me, but over the years there's been a lot of flanderization in the genre, and it all feels like it's doing the exact same thing. What started out as the next big thing in horror has honestly just become pretty stale, with a lot of them repeating the same tropes in the same exact format. You know, ooh, spooky faces, spooky text, a very undercooked storyline. About a year ago, I got back into the side of YouTube. With that, I found a bunch of analog horror, and it honestly just did nothing to me. I wasn't spooked in the slightest. I was honestly just super bored. Now, I'm not trying to say I'm some super tough dude who never gets scared, who ain't scared of nothing, because that couldn't be further from the truth. But this stuff is just, it isn't cohesive enough to be scary, and honestly uses a lot of the same tricks as most kinds of horror. You know, stuff like cheap jump scares, spooky faces, disturbing imagery, shock value, you know, none of it really feels new, despite the fact that a lot of people describe it as like cutting edge. And keep in mind, I'm not at all trying to be a hater by saying this, and if you're a big analog horror fan, that's great. Honestly, that's really cool, and I'm glad you enjoy it. I can take that away from you. But everything that I've seen has just really not been my cup of tea, to be honest. Despite that, it is clear to me that a lot of work and creativity and pure passion has been put into a lot of these videos, so that in itself is very commendable and impressive. Plus, I'll admit, some of the plots of these things can be pretty interesting, and work well to create the horror they set out to create. The two biggest examples of analog horror-related media I'm not a big fan of are the YouTube channel Urban Spook and the movie Skinnamarink. Now, there are already a lot of videos clowning on how trash Urban Spook is, so I won't go too much into it, but his videos just overuse shock value and don't actually have anything interesting to say. They're super repetitive and bring nothing new to the table. It'll literally just be, very disturbing way someone was killed, a painting depicting that disturbing way someone was killed. Like, now, I don't have that much of a problem with shock value in general, but if you're gonna do it, like, at least have some kind of purpose, you know? Like, make some sort of actual statement, you know, have some substance. Don't just be edgy just for the sake of being edgy. That's just embarrassing. Now, the other piece of media is a movie called Skinnamarink, which, unlike Urban Spook, people seem to actually like this, and I have no idea why. I just have no idea why people like this. Again, if you like this movie, that's completely fine, but in my entirely subjective opinion, this is so boring. Damn! The plot is basically non-existent. The majority of it is super quiet, which I know has a purpose, but I just don't find it entertaining to watch. Now, this could be blamed by the fact that I have the attention span of a goldfish, but if I can sit through video essays about some random YouTuber I've never even heard of and enjoy it, but I can't enjoy this, I don't know. This movie it's just a nothing burger to me. I'm not a fan. So yeah, I know this isn't the type of thing I usually talk about on this channel, but it's something I've been interested in for a while, so I wanted to cover it. I'd also like to know some of your opinions on this subgenre though, so you should comment. Anyway, that's enough out of me. Goodbye.